You can put some random data in text extra, and right now we can put up to 100 kilobytes of data in it. Mm-hmm. So you can do it, but the difference between Bitcoin and Monero is that in Monero you can track a single coin.
Right.
So you can just put data and say that this transaction has this NFT, whatever, but you can just move it around and track it like on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So it just loses sense to do this.
This week on Monero Talk is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys. And by StealthEX, an instant exchange where privacy is the top concern. Go to stealthex.io to instantly exchange between Monero and 450 plus assets without having to create an account or register, and with no limits, making StealthEX a simple way to purchase Monero with crypto anonymously. Monero Talk is also made possible from contributions by viewers and listeners like you. And supporting us is easier than ever. By typing in monerotalk.crypto in your monero.com or Cake Wallet send address field to send us a tip.
This week on Monero Talk, Douglas Tuman interviews Sergei Chernykh, a Monero developer and creator of P2Pool. The two discuss the recent developments of P2Pool, what problems decentralized mining is intended to solve, the potential drawbacks of having to run a full node, Monero scalability, the current state of adoption, the future of mining XMR, the impact of botnets on hashrate stability, RandomX versus ASICS, and much more. Monero Talk starts now.
Okay. Sergei, welcome to Monero Talk again.
Yeah.
I think it's been over I think it's like a little more than a year. I think I was looking back last time, it was like November 2022 or something, or September, like around that time.
No, it was 2021, I think.
Oh, wow.
A few months after P2Pool release.
Right,
that makes sense. You interviewed me. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was more than a year.
Yeah. So how long so P2Pool's been up since that time? So it's been how many months? Like how many months has it been live?
1.5 years already.
Okay. So how you feeling about it? I know you got the update coming up. We'll talk about that. But how are you feeling about the project in general, the adoption of it, now that it's been out in the wild for a while?
The adoption is not progressing as I wish. It's kind of stuck at 7, 8, sometimes 10% of the network. Yeah, but hopefully with the next updates, it will be more usable. Yeah, we will talk about it later. Yeah.
What do you think is holding up adoption? Like,
well, it's mostly hard to use. It lacks a good user experience for most miners because they have to run a node, be good with command lines. We do have some UI software for P2Pool, like drawbacks, that helps inexperienced users, but it's still hard. So the hardest part is that the users have to run a Monero node. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of disk space and bandwidth, so not everyone can do it.
Yeah, well, it's been added to the GUI though, right? I mean, obviously you still have a node for that, but it's kind of, you made it where if you're running the GUI, click a few buttons and get it up and running, right?
Many GUI users, they do mine on P2Pool, but bigger miners who have lots of mega hashes, they still prefer traditional pools. So I'm not sure what to do to appeal to them, so to make P2Pool more interesting to them. Yeah.
The bigger miners are opting to just join the larger
centralized pools.
Centralized pools.
Maybe most likely because it's easier to set up for them. So they just run xmrig and set a command line for it, and that's it.
Okay.
Maybe it's just easier setup.
Well, hey, I mean, don't be so hard on yourself. I think when you came on the first time, it was at like less than 1% or something, and now we're sitting.
Yeah.
And I think even then, I think your estimate was the hope to get to like the 10%. So it sounds like you're on track. At least going back and looking at what you had said in that first interview, I think you were. Would have been
honestly, I don't remember what I said at my first interview.
I just went back and was listening to it today on 2X on the way over here from work. But yeah, that was one of the things you had mentioned. I think you were saying like you were going for, whatever, 10%, and you'd be happy with that. Like, ultimately, do you see it potentially being able to, take a large chunk, or is it always going to reach some kind of equilibrium where it won't really expand beyond, whatever, 10, 20%?
Well, from technical point of view, it can handle the whole network easily, and we can run more than one P2Pool, so users can have a choice. If either they can join the biggest one or the small one. We have 2 P2Pools right now, so yeah, even if it grows, it can handle the load.
What are effectively the differences between the big one and the large one? Like, why would somebody choose the smaller one just because larger blockchain and stuff, like less to download?
Yeah, the big one has more hash rate, so it might be hard for small miners to get a P2Pool share, so to eventually get a payout. So that's why we have a smaller P2Pool for small miners.
Okay. I guess let's take a step back. What is P2Pool? I know, obviously anybody that's seen episode 1 of this a year and a half ago already knows that. Yeah. But there might be new people just kind of getting into Monero. Let's take a step back there. If you could just kind of quickly explain what it is and what problem it's set out to solve.
Yeah, P2Pool is solving the decentralization problem of traditional pools. P2Pool doesn't have a owner, so to say, or administrator or whatever. It doesn't have a pool wallet, so all miners just kind of come together and mine the same block, and when they find the block, everyone gets a payout directly from this block. So there is no middleman in this, and it's decentralized in this way. It's more safe way to mine in the pool, and it reduces the risk of 51% attack if some pool gets too big. Yeah, so even if P2Pool gets too big, bigger than 50%, it can be used for an attack because no one is controlling it. Yeah, so it's a way to make mining more safe for all miners.
Right, it
all users.
Right, it effectively decentralizes pools. So I'm just looking at some of my notes here. I guess we could get into. Well, I guess how would you explain how how it works on a technical level? In short, you don't have to go into crazy detail, but once again, for those just listening, I think a lot of people would be surprised by the fact that it's actually a separate blockchain that's mined alongside.
Yeah, it runs a separate blockchain to track who mined how many shares. So everyone has a copy of this additional blockchain and can calculate how much to pay to each miner participating at this moment. So when everyone is mining on a specific block template, they calculate the same rewards for everyone, and then they check everyone's shares that this share is paying properly to everyone. So all miners check each other's work to make sure that it's fair for everyone. And they use a blockchain to do this.
Right. There's really no other solution there in terms of trying to decentralize a pool, right? Were there other ideas, or is this really the only concept?
I don't know of other ideas. Bitcoin has P2Pool, and it had P2Pool since 2010, I think, and they also use a blockchain for this. So, yeah, it's the only way I know, and it looks like a straightforward way to a decentralized pool.
Mm-hmm. What are the the downfalls of P2Pool, or the technical things that you need to overcome when using it? I mean, there's obviously benefits, more decentralization. What are the negatives?
Negatives are you have to use a Monero node, so you have to run a node.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a long time to synchronize, and you have a free disk space, at least 60 gigabytes for print node. Well, there are public nodes that you can use with P2Pool, but they are often unreliable, and so I don't recommend it. So the main problem with P2Pool is that you have to run Monero node.
Mm-hmm.
So it slows down adoption, I think, because not everyone can just synchronize 150 gigabytes or 60 gigabytes and run them a node all the time.
Are there potential scalability issues where it's hard to scale up as the chains grow?
No, it scales up just fine, but I haven't tested it with more than 1,000 miners, so I don't know if it will really scale up, but it should, because it's the same decentralized architecture as a Monero network, so it should do it. And I haven't seen any performance issues so far, and we have more than 1,000 active miners on smaller P2Pool.
Mm-hmm.
Because all GUI miners, they prefer the smaller P2Pool.
Okay. And so what is the update that's coming down the pipe? What issues is that solving?
Yeah, the update addresses the problem of very small, tiny payouts on the main pool. So if you find one share on P2Pool, you'll get like 1/4 of 1,000th of Monero, which is like 10 cents right now. And this is a very small payout. And when you actually want to spend what you mined, you get to pay 4 or 5% in network fees to just consolidate all your miner payouts. So that's not ideal.
Okay.
And the update that's coming in about a month, it will change how P2Pool calculates rewards. It will introduce a dynamic window to calculate rewards. And this window will be smaller, which will make payouts automatically bigger for a single share. And it will auto-tune to pay on average 2 times per share. And by my calculations, it will fix this issue. So you won't have to pay 4 or 5% to consolidate all inputs. It will be more like 0.4% or something in network fees. Yeah, so it will be essentially solved.
Now, is this something you had foreseen in the original design of P2Pool, or was it until it was out in nature that you?
I haven't foreseen it, because when P2Pool launched, Monero had much smaller fees. Mm-hmm. But August last year, Monero hard forked and updated the fee algorithm. Then fees became 5 times bigger, and then it started to be noticeable for miners on the main P2Pool.
Now, I think I saw one of the other issues that people were calling out. Rucknium was maybe suggesting too that it could have been deteriorating ultimately the privacy of Monero because of minimizing.
Yes,
You could see that all the inputs were coming from the pools or something. If you could explain
that. Right now on main P2Pool, when you find a share, it stays eligible for payouts for 6 hours. And main P2Pool can find 10, 15 blocks and takes 6 hours. So you find one share and you get 15 payouts. So that's a lot of outputs generated. And if P2Pool grows, it will be more and more outputs, and it will hurt users' privacy because network will be flooded with P2Pool payouts essentially. And this update that's coming, it will put a cap on how many payouts per day P2Pool can theoretically generate. So that's one more advantage of this new dynamic window for P2Pool.
Okay, interesting. So is that there'd be too many outputs coming from the P2Pool mining, and then so that would...
Yeah, if P2Pool mining generates too many outputs, all the regular transactions will use these outputs as decoys, and it's very easy to spot that which decoy is coming from P2Pool. So this decoy will be essentially useless, and it hurts users' privacy. So
it'd be very easy to determine that all of these outputs are P2Pool mining outputs, and they're all obviously just decoys and not actual. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when this update goes live in March, there will be like 50% less P2Pool outputs on the network, which will immediately improve this privacy issue.
It's very cool that Rucknium, he was the one that figured that out, right? That kind of analyzed that and
yes.
Noticed that issue.
Yeah,
I love that. We hope to have him as a speaker actually at Monerotopia. Any chance we could get you over there? Any chance we get you to Mexico?
When is it? I'm not sure.
In May. Cinco de Mayo actually is the first day.
No, I don't have plans to fly anywhere in May, so not likely. No.
All right. Well, you got to make plans, man. Now you got a reason. You got a reason to. We could chat offline. I could try to maybe further convince you. It would be cool to have you there. Rucknium, actually, he would be presenting remotely though, probably because he wants to maintain his anonymity. I know last time we spoke. Yeah, because I'll just ask you some other non P2. Anything else you want to bring up with regards to the update of P2Pool before I go on tangents here?
Yeah. So this update, it not only addresses this privacy issue and small payouts issue, it also fixes a few internal technical problems that P2Pool has, like efficiency of mining the P2Pool shares. So after this update, it will use less memory and less CPU time to work, which will be better for miners on weak that are on P2Pool on weak machines like Raspberry Pis.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I couldn't do these fixes without hard fork in P2Pool. So yeah, so I put all these fixes in this hard fork. Yeah, so it will run better in a few words.
Awesome. Are there other things, as obviously P2Pool is, I think, your focus, right, in terms of Monero? Are there other Monero? I know XMR-Rig, right?
Yeah, I'm still working on XMR-Rig, pushing updates to XMR-Rig from time to time, or fixing bugs when they come up. Yeah, so XMR-Rig and P2Pool are my main focuses.
In working on P2Pool, are there other things that you've come across in Monero that have excited you, like topics, things that you want to perhaps get involved in? Other elements of the protocol?
Well, everything that's related to mining, yeah, that's my interest. And right now we have a discussion about transaction extra fields.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, P2Pool does use TX extra fields, so it's directly affecting P2Pool. But whatever we come up with, I can just push an update for P2Pool.
So
it shouldn't be a problem to fix it on my side.
Okay. Ultimately, like how much space do you need for transaction extra? Like if it got completely deprecated, that would be an issue for you, obviously, right? But
P2Pool uses TX extra. It generates 70 bytes TX extra, so it's on a smaller side, so it shouldn't be a problem. Even if it gets completely removed, it will be replaced with some specific fields for specific purposes, and yeah, I'll just.
Oh, okay. It wouldn't. There'd be something else replacing it. It wouldn't be like that. There would be no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit? What would be, the replacement?
Well, TX extra right now is used for when you pay out to many addresses or sub addresses. They use TX extra for additional keys. This can be just replaced with a field for these keys, and P2Pool uses it for hash of the P2Pool block to store this hash in Monero blockchain. So it's like 32 bytes additional, and it also can be replaced with a specific field in a new transaction format. So other than that, I don't know who uses TX extra at all. So it was a good idea, but I don't think it's used.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see people on Twitter talking about trying to use it to do ordinals on Monero, trying to do NFTs on Monero. What do you think of that?
Yeah, but well, you can put some random data in TX extra, and there are, right now we can put up to 100 kilobytes of data in it. Mm-hmm. So you can do it, but the difference between Bitcoin and Monero is that in Monero you can track a single coin.
Right.
So you can just put data and say that this transaction has this NFT, whatever, but you can just move it around and track it like on Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So it just loses sense to do this.
Right. It'd be hard to do. I mean, maybe if there was some separate client that's then tracking it and people are kind of opting out with a key or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if Monero gains popularity and becomes very popular, people, of course, will do it because it's possible. They'll create their own clients and so on. So it's better to address this issue before it happens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The people are going to do what the people want to do, right? We're seeing it in
yeah. If it's possible to do, it will be done. I'm pretty sure.
Do you love coffee and Monero as much as we do? Consider making gratuitous.org your daily cup. Pay with Monero for premium fresh beans, and if you like what you taste, send a digital cash tip directly to the Guatemalan farmers that made it possible. Proceeds help us grow this channel, Gratuitous, and Monero.
So, how are you feeling about the Monero project overall? You think it's doing a good job at maintaining its digital cash-like nature?
So far, yes. Yeah. It didn't lose its original spirit. So it's been how many years? Almost 9 years now, and it's still going strong. And it didn't derail into NFT territory yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, which is good.
I mean, do you see that as a potential attack on Monero? People trying to do things there, trying to disrupt the community with these ideas, or how do you see that playing out, or do you think overwhelmingly people will be like, no, it's digital cash? We want to.
Yeah, people mostly agree that Monero should be used for just transactions and all related to transactions. So like money, not like storage for NFTs.
Is there anything in Monero that like kind of sticks out in your mind as something that needs to really be worked on and overcome to make sure we maintain our digital cash nature? Obviously, you're working on P2Pool to keep the pools decentralized, but are there like other things that you look at? You're like, that's going to be a problem. It's not a problem now. Like, what are the things that stick out in your mind?
Yeah, the mining centralization, which is P2Pool trying to solve, and I think it's doing good progress. The other issue is the scaling. So when Monero gets used like 10 times more, it will put a stress on many Monero nodes. And so we need to work more on improving transaction sizes and node efficiency. And, so I haven't heard about any tests trying to push like thousands of transactions per second in some private testnet or something like this. And I don't think the current code of Monero can handle this, because
you're basically saying like it won't scale in terms of the nodes getting too large to run a node. Is what you're saying?
And it will be CPU bound even before it gets too large, I think. So yeah, we need to fix some codes in Monero first.
And by fixing, you're saying just reducing transaction sizes? Is that what you're saying? You're like making it more efficient?
And there are some bottlenecks in Monero code that prevent it from processing more than like 100 transactions per second right now. I did some internal tests. So I'm not sure why, but I'm pretty sure it can be fixed, because it's just, I have 16-core CPU and it uses like 2 or 3 cores. So it's just a technical problem. It's not a fundamental issue. So, but we need to work on this code to make it better scalable.
Oh, well, so what do you think that do you have any, do you know what that technical problem is that's causing that roadblock beyond 100 transactions?
Well, I haven't looked into it in particular, just run a few quick tests, but it's more likely that we just don't use many cores when we check transactions.
Okay.
Check incoming transactions to mempool, or just synchronizing it with blockchain.
So how far do you think Monero can go on the base layer in terms of scaling? Or do you think sooner or later it's going to have to rely on something like a Lightning network?
On a base layer, it can go, well, if we have typical transaction, 1.5 kilobytes, I think it can do 1,000 transactions per second eventually. But it will require a lot of disk space and a lot of bandwidth, so not everyone will be able to run it out.
Do you think that ultimately becomes a problem for decentralization, or that, the ecosystem will evolve in such a way where it'll be decentralized enough? Maybe not everybody that uses Monero runs a node, but the core network will have enough decentralization to maintain its censorship resistance. What do you think? Like, if we get to that 100 transaction per second environment, and it's becoming more difficult to run nodes, are the nodes going to be too large to the point where it becomes centralized, or how do you potentially see that playing out?
Well, right now we try to encourage people to run nodes everywhere. So GUI wallet, it runs a node by default. P2Pool requires a node. So as far as I remember, we have like around 15,000 active nodes on Monero right now.
Mm-hmm.
If Monero grows to much bigger size, we'll have fewer nodes, but even 1,000 nodes should be enough for
Okay.
decentralization. But they will be most likely run on some data center servers. Well, few people, of course, will run it at home by a lot of hard disk drives to store the whole blockchain. Yeah, but we will have fewer nodes in the future if Monero grows a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it seems inevitable, right? I mean, the tech, the hardware is going to improve, right? And bandwidth tech will improve, but probably not to the pace where we need it to improve to keep things as easy.
Well, so far, hardware has been progressing faster than blockchain is growing. So hopefully this trend will continue for at least 10 years more.
But even with that, where it's going to be difficult to run nodes at some point.
Well, it all depends on how fast Monero grows. If it enters this exponential phase again, it will be getting harder and harder to run a node because it will be growing faster than hardware can catch up with it.
Yeah, about that. I know you have your head down, you're working under the hood of Monero. But what do you think of the larger, bigger picture adoption? Do you have any opinion there? Like, what's your take as you're seeing things out there? I know you're mostly actually looking at the code, building this stuff. People like me are out there on Twitter and stuff, spend more time just BSing. But I'm curious if your perception of adoption.
Well, as for adoption, it is being used in certain markets. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And it's essentially replaced Bitcoin in those markets. But
in true markets, open markets.
Yeah. So as for broader markets, it's getting some slower adoption. It's like chicken and egg problem. For merchants to accept Monero, they need to have customers who are willing to pay with Monero. They need to also find each other. So we need to, I don't know, promote on both sides or ask people to push their merchants or their favorite merchants to introduce or to start accepting Monero.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's happening though. Obviously, I think the dark market adoption is a great indication that it works as intended. But I think we're starting to see this realization that it also makes sense to use in the white markets, right? That there's advantages there to using a cash-like utility if you're online selling things, if you're a vendor. Maybe you don't want everybody to see your transactions. Maybe you don't want, your transactions going through corporate servers that are tracking and tracing it, and maybe you don't want the state being able to see everything you're doing. So I think we're starting to see that. Like, do you see Monero market? It's gaining a little traction. People that are out there selling things for Monero market. Legal items is not a dark market, but I think we're starting to see real traction. It's interesting.
Yeah, so it's like a snowball effect. It starts slow, but then it grows faster and faster. So I think we are just in the beginning of this phase.
Yeah, like if I'm harvesting honey and selling it online, why would I not want to sell it for Monero, right? For cash, right? I would want. I want to take advantage of that, right? So I think we're starting to see that transition. Do you see it at all in your kind of day-to-day life, like where you are? Are you seeing it in your beyond the online, just in your environment? Is crypto being adopted? Like, I'm here in New York. I don't want to dox you in any way. I know you mentioned you live in Russia, but you don't have to give your exact locations or anything. But are you seeing kind of any real world crypto adoption?
Apart from some online VPNs they can buy, well, there are exchanges where you can exchange for cash. Yeah, but real world. Well, I'm seeing a lot of stickers on the streets.
Okay. That's what I'm talking about. All right, where you are, you're seeing stickers. Where approximately? Where is that? You don't have to.
But I'm not in Russia. I'm in Sweden. So.
Oh, you are in Sweden. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there are see stickers all the time in the random places, and they're often in new places, so they don't stay for long. So not just Monero stickers; they're just clean stickers.
Right.
Quite often, yeah.
So, any insight into adoption in Russia itself, or you're just not? You don't really have your ear to.
As for adoption in Russia, there are just quick exchangers that you can use to change cash to cryptocurrency, and the other way around. But I haven't heard about the actual adoption.
Yeah, I'm just curious, especially with the state of Russia right now. U.S. trying to essentially sanction Russia in various ways. I'm curious if that spurred any adoption over there. Obviously, I know you're maybe not in the best position to answer that, but
well, yeah, it got very, very hard to send money to Russia, and yeah, I may or may not have used Monero to circumvent this.
Right. I mean, if people are going to do what they got to do, right? So I'm curious if now more than ever, I would think people would start moving towards options like that, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's an obvious use case for Monero. If you need to send money to a country or from a country that doesn't let you do it, or your bank doesn't want to do it, then you can use Monero, and there are a lot of exchanges that work in all countries.
And last time we spoke about mining bots a little bit. I mean, because you are like the mining guru, and we were talking about like these bots, and you're basically saying how a percentage of the Monero mining network is basically these mining bots. And I think at that time you were saying it was at like 20. You were estimating like maybe 20% of the hash rate is done by these bots. Just curious.
Yes.
Is that like, and you were pretty much saying like it would reach some kind of equilibrium where it wouldn't make sense for it to keep growing. Any idea if that's if that hypothesis is coming to fruition, or?
I haven't looked into this recently, but the network hash rate has been stable in the past couple of years. There are occasional spikes. Like we had recently some guy with 1 gigahash this weekend was mining on few pools, but he's gone now. So it was, my guess, it was like some hacked cloud server account from some company that was used to ramp up to 1 gigahash and mining during the weekend. And then the company noticed it, and now it's not happening. Yes.
But but probably still at like around the 20% mark in terms of percentage of mining. That's obviously we don't know. You never know, right? Like what the actual number is, but you think that's kind of a safe bet as percentage of the network that's mined by bots?
Yes, I would say at least 20%.
And you were saying there's really it doesn't really make sense for that to keep growing, right? Beyond that percentage.
Yeah, because botnets, if they decide to mine Monero, they can just put all they have to do this, because it's essentially free for them.
Right. Okay. So it's not going to become any more free, right? Like you're saying like,
yeah, I think last time I said that they are already maxed out because they have free resources and just mine with everything they have. So they stay like a stable percentage of network.
Right. Anybody that's listening in the spaces, I see there's a couple of people out there. If you want to kind of go ahead, give this a retweet or whatever. We're probably going to be wrapping the interview itself up pretty soon because I know Sergei doesn't have a lot of time. But we'll try to jump in the room and answer one or two questions. So if you guys do have a question, kind of think about it now and raise your hand now. We'll move over there.
Yeah, it's already past midnight here, so I'm going to sleep soon.
I know, and I appreciate you doing this. P2Pool, people are into it in Monero. They're very excited about it. They love that you're continuing to develop it, iterate it. So we wanted to do this talk, and I greatly appreciate you coming on. How about one last question before we move to the room to see if anybody does have a question. Guys, if you do have your question, just raise your hand now, just so we'll see and we'll know that people want to ask questions. Otherwise, we won't even go in there and do the spaces. So if you're gonna come up on stage, just raise your hand now. RandomX? How you feeling about RandomX these days? There's always this theory that maybe it's maybe ASICS will get developed on Monero. What is your current take?
Well,
RandomX working as intended.
The first sign of ASICS is that network hash rate goes up and stays higher, and then goes higher again. But I haven't seen this in the last few years, so it is just staying stable.
So you think it's working? I mean, where do you see it going? You think it will continue to maintain that ability to thwart ASICS?
It should because we are getting faster and faster CPUs all the time, and ASICS can be faster than a CPU, but then a new CPU comes out and it evens out.
So we won't know until it happens. We had Bitmain reach out to us, and they wanted to be a sponsor at Monerotopia, which I thought was kind of crazy, right? I was like, guys, we don't have Bitmain. You can't make an ASIC for Monero unless you guys know better than we do. As far as I know, that's not possible. And they didn't.
Well, it is possible. It's just an ASIC.
Yeah.
ASIC for Monero will not be as efficient to make it economically
viable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But they didn't seem to really grasp that. They're like, no, we won't. They were like, we want to add new coins so people can mine them. I don't think they knew, really understood Monero. Not saying it's impossible, but they were just like, oh, we just want to add new coins to mine. So we know.
The point of
an ASIC miner for Monero.
Just to clarify, RandomX doesn't make it impossible. It just makes it makes an ASIC look like so much like a CPU that it competes with CPU,
right?
And it just doesn't outperform it.
Right. You could build an application-specific piece of hardware that mines Monero better than your standard CPU, but to the degree where it's not really economically worth doing so.
Because the Intel, AMD, they produce CPUs by millions, and they just have economy of scale, so that they can just produce them at much lower price than ASIC.
Yeah.
And price per hash will be worse for an ASIC. In case with RandomX.
Yep. All right. Once again, guys, in the chat, if you guys want to ask a question, raise your hand now, or we won't even jump in the chat, and I'll let Sergei rest that brain of his, which we need here in Monero. I'd rather let him do that than pester him with more of this. So go ahead and raise your hand if you do want to ask a question. Raise your hand in the chat. I don't see any hands going up. All right, Sergei, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, man. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? Put out there to the Moneroverse? Any information?
Yeah. So just a reminder that P2Pool forks in 1 month. So if you are mining on P2Pool, you should update to the latest version, or you'll stay on the off chain. It will not find any blocks. You will not get payouts.
There's going to be one or two of those people, right? What the hell? Why is that?
Yeah.
So that's the reminder. Dude, Do people how do people get notified of that other than you saying it here and it being stated in like, forums? Is it like
people? I put the news and header on P2Pool.io, the website, and put a post on Reddit. And people usually check the GitHub too. And GUI wallet will be updated soon, and it will have a updated P2Pool with it. So all GUI miners should get an update too, automatically.
Cool. Automatically, awesome.
Yeah, well, when they update to the new version of GUI wallet.
Right, they'll have to download the new software.
Yeah.
All right, Sergei, we're gonna leave it at that. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time. Maybe we'll check in another year and a half, see when the next P2Pool update. I love that you've done this for Monero. Thank you. We appreciate it. And yeah, man, we'll leave it at that. Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Bye. Thank you. All right, guys, everybody that's listening, we will see you next week at the next live Monero Talk. Next time, don't be so shy. Bring your questions. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode. We release new episodes every week. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Odyssey, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Go to monerotalk.live to subscribe for a full list of places where you can watch and listen. If you want to interact with us, guests, or other podcast listeners, you can follow us on Twitter. And please leave us a review on iTunes. It helps people find the show, and we are always happy to read them. So thanks so much, and we look forward to being back next week.